You better be careful.
Klay's harder to talk. Klay's become harder to talk about than Steph.
The 41% from three this year, after starting off with that Barkley slander, telling the world he was in a dark place, and then parlaying that into the two best months of his career, and he ends up with the most threes in the league made and attempted.
We've got Antoine Walker at 12. Yeah, Klay took 140 more threes than he ever has in any past year this year.
Well, okay. What was the percentage when it was all said and done?
I think like 41.
Players would give their right arm to be
players,
there.
Not Klay. It's low for Klay.
But it's almost to his career high.
Not really.
It's not 31%. So nobody could say. I think a lot of people are still under the umbrella of Klay is not what he was.
He's not.
But if you're telling me he's 41% after umpteen three-point attempts and he leads the league in the most made, I'll take that all day.
I'm not going to disagree with you. If you want to compare Klay Thompson to Klay Thompson,
now
he's doing great. If you want to compare Klay Thompson, if you want to compare Klay Thompson to other players, he's fine.
Right.
If you want to compare Klay Thompson to Klay Thompson, he's declined.
But not falling off. Because let's put the right on the table. That's what we thought we were talking about or
don't put
watching.
Words in anybody's mouth.
When people were calling this, I didn't say you. People were calling the show, talking about bringing them off the bench.
Let me tell you how guys age. All right, they don't fall off a cliff. They just get more inconsistent. They have fewer great games. They lose a step on defense. It doesn't all come crumbling down.
So why would Klay be gone?
I didn't say that was not me. That was Austin.
Right.
So Klay, before the injury, was essentially a 43.5% three-point shooter. Since the injury, he's 40. What? So he's dropped 3 or 4. He's dropped 3 or 4 points. In terms of his three-point shooting. I mean, that's not me hating.
No, I said, okay.
That's a guy who used to shoot, 41, 40, 41.7, 43.9, 42.5. Actually, that's not right. He was lower than that. So he's dropped about 2 points, 2 or 3 points, not 3 or 4. Let me throw this at somebody. People may get really mad at me for this one. So I'm looking at Klay's numbers, and, they're pretty solid. And then I'm thinking to myself, man, he had some unbelievable games.
That he did.
So I was like, gosh, let me look at some of his unbelievable games. Well, he had 4 unbelievable three-point shooting games.
Gotcha.
He was 10 for 13 against the Rockets.
Damn.
He was 10 for 21 against the Hawks. He was 12 for 16 against OKC. Then they played the Rockets again. He was 12 for 17. He had 4 games against those opponents where he was 44 for 67 from 3.
Wow.
If you take away those 4 games, he ends up shooting 38.5%. 4 games were so good that they meant 2 percentage points. Now, as you're going to say, where you end up is where you end up.
Right.
But the bottom line is Klay has shot the ball, no matter how you look at it, he shot the ball more inconsistently this year than he ever has. Because let's say you're a 40% shooter and you have 3 games. I mean, ideally, if you're a 40% shooter, what do you want to do? 4 for 10, 4 for 10, 4 for 10. That's a 40% shooter. Klay was a 40% shooter, but he was 2 for 10, 2 for 10, 8 for 10.
So there was consistency.
Exactly.
Right.
And you would rather have a guy who plays 3 games and goes 4 for 10, 4 for 10, 4 for 10, for the most part, than a guy who goes 2 for 10, 2 for 10, then 8 for 10. So he's had some monster games this year.
So doesn't that wash out the monster inconsistent games?
Well, that's the point. He's had if I'm telling you that on these great games, I can drop him down to 38.5. That means his bad games are worse than ever.
Oh. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
His extremes are higher and lower than they have been. Also because he's shooting more.
No doubt. And that takes energy.
So he's shooting more than he ever has.
Right.
But he's less consistent than he's ever been.
But what if I told you
just a fact.
That dip from 43 to 40, that ain't as major, and the eye test aspect of all this to me, and Austin, I'm talking to you, I've watched every one of those three-pointers miss and go in that you just talked about this season. Steiny, I'm at the juncture of I'll take 40 all day, and it feels like when Klay Thompson rises up to shoot, I feel, and I told you this,
great.
I feel like it's going in.
That's great.
So do you
think...
It's
not as much as it used to.
But what if I were to say by a small margin?
Well, okay.
And then for the people in the back, Steiny, let me get this out. What if the people said, Steiny, why would you want to take those games out? That he was good at?
Because
what's the greater?
Because they indicate that over the course of the entire season, that
he can be, it's 50-50 is what you...
No, it's not 50-50. It's like 40-60. It's these, like if you have 112 for 16, if you shoot 40% from the floor, all right? And you have 112 for 16, but that means you can go 12 for 16, 12 for 26. You can miss your next 14 shots and still be a 40% shooter.
Isn't that how math works,
But that's how you lose more games. Because you're having one great game, two
I didn't know that's
clunkers.
Where you're going.
Well, of course. Would you rather? Okay, you got Steph
obviously that's what you shoot for.
Would you rather have Steph Curry go 4 for 10, 4 for 10, 4 for 10, or 2 for 10, 2 for 10, 8 for 10?
4 for 10, 4
exactly.
for 10. I didn't know that was your greater point in all that.
I said,
wow.
He's never shot the ball more inconsistently. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Now, what if Peter Vesey walked in here and pulled up a chair and said, you know what, I feel good about where Klay Thompson's at in regard to shooting the ball. Can't you understand why a person would say that the way he watching him here this last month and a half?
Let me be clear.
Because that's where I'm at.
Let me be clear. Klay Thompson, they don't win a title without Klay Thompson last year.
Okay.
Klay Thompson is still good enough to be a 30-minute-a-game player, and this team win a championship. Klay Thompson can win a championship playing 30 minutes a game for this team.
Right.
All right?
Prove it.
That's the fact. Stop telling me he's the same player. He's not the same player. He's still damn good, and he's still better than most of the guys he plays against. Right. But he's not as good as he was, so stop trying to say he's that player of 3 or 4 years ago.
But where are you hearing that?
Say something better. Yeah. Say, you know what? His game's actually evolving to where he's figuring out how to do more with less.
But where are you hearing this? He's that guy. Because he told us.
Clay's back. Clay's back.
See,
no, he's not.
I think that's just the feeling that I have that if they were to draw up a game-winning shot for him, you could understand.
But stop saying he shot the ball in the last 2 years like he shot it his whole career.
Yeah.
Stop that.
Well,
no, he hasn't.
Yeah, I haven't been hearing it like that. And then defensively, he told you when he was responding to Barkley's comments, he'd be a fool to think he could be that. But that's what he's striving for.
Let me tell you what. Why haven't we talked about this? Forget Klay's numbers. Why haven't we talked about, hey, you know what? You know what he could do in the postseason? We saw a little about it the other night. They could start posting him up a little more.
Well,
that's how that's how an older guy's game evolves. That's how Jordan's game evolved. Stop saying age doesn't work. People get older. It affects everybody. So he's still a hell of a player.
Hoisting up shots left and right.
Of course, this is slander on Klay. You know why? Because you're a freaking idiot. You don't understand what I'm saying. Nobody's saying he stinks. Learn what I'm saying.
He's a marksman stuff.
Learn
and he's good
what
enough.
I'm saying. That's right.
Yeah,
he's good enough.
Right, for them to no doubt.
He's just not who he was.
Yeah, I don't know
and
who
if you
would
want to
tell
say
you
he's
that.
still better, everybody thinks he's the player he was in 19. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. and he's not.
I just think
his defense has taken a step back, and his offense has taken a step back.
And I'll tell you this.
And he's still a great player because he's a Hall of Famer.
And I think he's giddy. I'm not selling him short, Steiny. I think that man is giddy about where his game's at right now.
He should be.